Okay, so now we're going to build scissor, paper, rock in Scratch, in Python and in JavaScript. Now I've gone over the logic and the layout in the last video, so if you have more clarification required, watch the previous video. What I've laid out in Scratch is I've declared three variables. Got random number, computer pick and user guess, set them to 0 for now, and the layout is going to be we do whatever we need to do to get the computer to pick scissor, paper or rock. We do whatever we need to do for the user to pick scissor, paper or rock, store that in a variable as well, and then we're comparing these two variables. And there's going to be three outcomes. Either the value of the variable, whether it's scissors or paper or rock, would be the same. Well, then a block of code will run to say that you've tied. If the computer wins, so that's a scenario where the computer's variable wins out of the available options, which I went over in the last video, or if the player wins, then that block of code will run. Similarly, in Python, I've imported the random and we've declared three variables: random number, computer pick, and user guess. At this stage, random number is declared a value of a random choice of 0, 1, or 2, and these two variables are empty. Then we've got this variable called computer pick, which is going to store the value of the computer pick. We're going to get the user to pick one, and we're also going to do a while loop so that you can only type in scissor, paper or rock to continue through the program. And again, if there's a tie, a block of code will run to print or output you have tied. If the computer wins, it will say that the computer's, and if the player wins, we output to let the person know that they've won. And in JavaScript, we've declared a variable random number with the random option. These two variables are empty. We'll do the computer pick, the user guess, we'll compare them, and if they tie, if computer wins, and if you win. Let's get into Scratch. So with Scratch, to put the random number to that variable, it's easy. We run the program, and we can see over here that it's a random number 0, 1, or 2. Next thing we want to do is have the computer pick variable populate with a word depending on the outcome of this random number. So we've got some operators here. We've got the equals operator, and we've got the if-else branch. So if that variable called random number equals 1, well, which it has in this case, well then the computer pick would populate with a string of text that says paper. If it was 0, it'd be scissors, and if it was 2, it would be rock. So let's join these together. Add this to the program, and we're going to just output the value of computer pick at this point in the program. We'll be able to see it up here anyway, but it's just good to output it. So it's picked 2, and it's set computer pick to the string of text rock. Just test a few more. Paper, 1 is paper, is working, and 0 is scissors. Okay, so far so good. Next we want to do the user guess. So the first part of the user guess is to get the input with the ask block from here. Ask scissors, paper or rock, and then we want to set the user's input into that blue answer variable, but then also set the first user guess variable to that, so that then we can continue on through the program and we can use that blue answer variable for other things. So this isn't quite how we want it yet. We haven't quite set up the loop, but let's just see how the program looks at this point in time. So at the moment it's picked 2, which is rock, and it's asked me to put in scissor, paper or rock. So I'll put in paper, and you'll see that the blue one populated and the orange one is populated, and now we can use that. But the problem with the program at the moment is that I could type in mongoose. So we want to put in some valid testing here to be able to restrict what the user can input. So these are all the operators that we're going to need. We need the OR block. We're going to need 2 of them because we're going to have 3 inputs. We want this one, or this one, or this one. And we want the equals one, and we simply get the user guess variable and we say if the user guess equals scissors, or user guess equals paper, or user guess equals rock. And we put all of that in a condition that says repeat until. So we're stuck in this loop until the user guess input does equal scissors, paper, or rock. So let's try just this little part and see if this works how we hope. So I'm just going to put a block of code at the end that says you got out of the loop. So at the moment I have mongoose in there, which is not one of those, so it's still looping at this stage. So if I put in printer, it's still looping. The program's not going to continue past this point. It's going to continue to ask me until I put in one of those. So now I can put in one of those and it's now gone to the next block of code. So that's working. Okay, so now we compare the user input, which can only be one of 3 things, to the computer pick, which can also only be one of 3 things. Okay, so in the last video, I went over in detail about the circumstances in which the computer is going to win. So the first part is going to be if there's a tie, which is easy. If the user guess equals the computer pick, well then we'll say tie. If the computer wins, so we said computer is scissors, or if the computer is paper, or if the computer is rock, what does the user have to be to win? So in this case, if the computer is scissors, or then user has to be paper for the computer to win. So we've set up some OR block and AND block here. So we're basically saying if the computer and the user is this scenario, or computer and user, or computer and user. So let's now fill those up. So that's scenario 1 where the computer will win. Scenario 2 where computer pick will win is if it's paper and the user is rock. Or scenario 3 where computer pick will win is if it's rock and the user is scissors. Well, then we say you lose, and we can put that inside that if-else block. And then any other scenario that's not a tie and not the computer winning, therefore must be you winning. So we don't have to spell out every scenario in which the user wins the game. We could do that and it would be the converse of this, but this is an easier way to do it. We put that into there. And I'm going to leave these variables checked so that we can test as we go. So it's picked 2, which is rock. I want to first check the tie condition. Tie, yes. Okay, it's paper. So I want the computer to win. So if I put in rock, it's now rock. I want to win. So if I put in paper, I win. So now we can flesh out the concatenation here to be a bit more specific. Because the user guess and the computer pick variables have values in them, we can use those values to output. So for tie, all we have to say is get the join block. Because we both chose the same, either will work, but I'm going to put in the computer pick. You could put in user pick as well. So I'm now going to test my tie scenario. So the computer's picked scissors. That's fed back to me what we've done, and I just want to do one more test. So computer's chosen rock, I've chosen rock, tie, you both chose rock. So then we just do the same scenario for here. So it's going to be that if one of these conditions where the computer wins, it will now say you lose, I chose, and it will tell me what the program has picked. So let's have a look. Random number 0 is picked, which means the computer has gone for scissors. Because I want to test the scenario where the computer wins, I'm going to do paper, and it's fed back to me, you lose, is I chose scissors. And we could also say, I chose scissors, you chose paper. We're not going to hard code it because the outcomes are different. So by putting in the value of the variable at this point in the program, this should work nicely. So again, we're testing the computer winning. So it's picked scissors, I pick paper, you lose, I chose scissors, and you paper. It'd be nice if it said you chose paper. And the final concatenation is I might just duplicate this whole lot and say you win. I chose whatever I chose and you chose whatever you chose, and let's see how the winning scenario looks. So if the computer picks rock, I want to pick paper. You win, I chose rock and you chose paper, and there's a there's a space error here, so I need to put a space. And one last test. Computer has picked scissors, I've picked rock, you win, I chose scissors and you chose rock. Okay, let's move to Python. So I've done random a few times before in these videos. So this variable is set to that. So we want to now say that if random number is 0, well then this empty variable called computer pick will populate with the string of text that says scissors. Else, if it's 1, then you put paper, and else if it's 2, we put in rock. And we can just test the computer pick variable at this point in the program. Quick test. What is the value of computer pick at this point in the program? It's paper, rock, or scissors. It's working randomly. That's working fine. So now we want to set up the while loop for the user input. So what's important here? So we have the while loop and we have brackets because there's a few conditions in here. So it's if user guess does not equal scissors, and if user guess does not equal paper, and user guess does not equal rock. So if the user guess is not one of those 3 words, then put up the input prompt scissor, paper, or rock. And if it is, well then we can say, so we're at this point here, and this will just loop indefinitely if I don't put in one of those. So if I put in, it's just going to keep looping. So I put in rock, it says you got out of the loop. So if you did not put this in and you run the loop now, your program will just run forever, essentially crash, and you would have to redo your work again. So you do need to take your time with this. Think about it. Is there something in the while loop that actually gives me a chance to break out? And what gives you the chance here is that every time you put in an incorrect answer, this input loop runs and it stops the program to allow you to type. And that's the only thing that's stopping the loop from running indefinitely. Okay, so then the next part is if it's a tie scenario. So if the computer pick variable at this point and the user guess variable at this point, we compare them, and if they match, we've got some concatenation here, so I'm going to test the tie scenario. For me to do that, I need to be able to know what the computer pick is, so I'm just going to do a test. I know the computer is scissors. I want to test the tie scenario. And I can see I need to put in a space here. Now, one thing that could go wrong is that they could put in a capital. And it's not going to let me out of the loop for a start. And so they're going, well, what's wrong? So you could put in some code that says to lowercase user input. In Python, after the user input, we can put in dot lower. So if I run this now, if I do paper like that, it's going to accept it. Because what it does is it takes that user input and puts everything in lowercase, despite what I do, even if I did all capitals. So if I did all capitals, it's going to turn it lower so that it will match exactly here. So we've got the lowercase is working and we know the tie scenario is working. So now we need to know what happens if the computer wins. So here we've got and all commands in between the brackets. So we've got if, else if, and we've got parentheses for this first lot that says if the computer pick is paper and the user guess is rock. So that's one scenario where the computer wins. Or if the computer pick wins this scenario, or the computer pick wins in this scenario, and then both of those are wrapped up in a parentheses, then colon and indent one line from here. We want to output the concatenation you lose, computer chose the value of computer pick at this point in the program, and you chose user guess at this point in the program, and just a full stop. So now I want to test. So for the computer to win, I need to put in rock. And that is working. Our last scenario is if the player wins. We output you win. The computer chose, this is just text, plus we're concatenating the value of that computer pick variable at this point in the program, and you chose the value of this variable at this point in the program, and a full stop. So now it's working, and to make it more unpredictable, I just want to take out the test. So now when I play, I don't know what the computer has picked. Now there's a little bug here. So for me to debug. Now I could stop the video here and fix this up, but this is a good chance for you to see how I'm going to debug this. So the first thing I'm going to need to know is what is the value of computer pick. Then I can see what's happened. Okay, so it's rock. So if I first test the tie scenario, so if I put in rock, so it's saying this last line no matter what happens. So what I've done is I've gone if, I've gone else if, but then I've just put this block of code at the end. So what I need is the else so that it's still part of this block of code here. Now something else I should show you with indenting, you can highlight it, and if you go Windows key or Shift with the square bracket, you can indent left or right a whole block of code. Now so we need to indent that. So now we've got if, else if, and else. So let's try one more time. Scissors. So I want to try this scenario, and now I can take out that test, and now I can play without knowing what the computer has picked. Great. Okay, so now in JavaScript. Now I've done random before in videos. Basically, math.random picks a number between 0 and 1. I've multiplied that by 2, 0, 1, 2. I might actually need to multiply that by 3 because it rounds down. So I'm just going to do a test here on the value of that random number. And just make sure it's outputting 0, 1, or 2. 0, 2, okay, so that's now working. Okay, so that's between 0 and 1. I've multiplied that by 3, and then I've used math.floor to round down. So now it chooses 0, 1, or 2. And now the logic is going to be very much the same. We just now have to look at the specific JavaScript syntax. So now in JavaScript, this condition that's inside the parentheses must be true to run this block of code. So if random number equaled 0, well then computer pick would have the value of scissors. Else, if random number equals 1, computer pick is populated with the word paper. Else, if random number equals 2, computer pick populates with the word rock, and I just want to do a quick test to see the value of computer pick, and I'm going to use alert. Let's see if this runs. So scissors. Paper, that appears to be working. So I no longer need that, so I might just comment that part out. Okay, user's guess. And again, we've got a while loop. So I might just test a while loop on its own with one condition. So while user guess does not equal scissors, we'll then run this block of code. And the block of code to run is going to be the variable user guess, put up a prompt that asks for user input. So this is running. The only thing that's stopping it running is that this prompt box pops up and allows me to put in some input. And if that input does match scissors, it will break out of the loop. So let's test. So if I put in donkey, it keeps looping. But if I put in scissors, it breaks out of the loop, and I would have put something here like print. Let's do that. Test it one more time. So we're basically saying we're stuck here until this condition is true, and then it will go here. Stuck. If it's scissors, well then I am out of the loop. So I can now get rid of that. So that's one condition. But we've got several. If user guess does not equal scissors, and if user guess does not equal paper, and if user guess does not equal rock, well then you're going to keep running this bit of code. The thing that stops it is the pop-up box that gives you a chance to type in input. If I took that out, that will run forever and ever, and we would have to crash the program. But because we have this pop-up, that gives us a chance to type something, and if what we type doesn't match a condition, well then we never break out of the loop. Okay, so now we're comparing the value of computer pick to the value of user guess at this point in the program. And the scenarios are if it's a tie, if the computer pick wins, or if you win. So let's look at tie first. So if computer pick matches user guess, well then we'll output tie. You both chose whatever the value of computer pick is, and then you can ask to play again. Now here we have multiple conditions. Else if, the scenario where computer pick beats user, or scenario where computer pick is rock and user is scissors, or the scenario where computer pick is scissors and the user is paper. All those scenarios are where the computer wins and we output you lose because I chose whatever one of these and you chose whatever one of those fits this scenario. And finally, and this time we'll remember the else block. Any other scenario means that you will win. Document.write, you win, computer chose, computer chose, computer pick, and you chose user guess. So let's run it and test it now. Play again? Yes, I will. Oh, another tie. Now I can see I need a space here, in, there. Okay, so we've got to the end of making our scissor paper rock game in Scratch, Python and in JavaScript.